Sagittarius, your October reading, Libra season. All information to work with me one-on-one is below, as well as the extended version to this reading, which will be in the first link below, the Patreon link, which will give you an even more in-depth breakdown of what is going on this month, through the seasons, through this beginning of the eclipse season, through a time where you could just feel the ether, you can feel the veil, you can feel how clear things are, that they almost don't feel maybe real sometimes. You can feel the change in the air. And the first few cards out we have are Justice, Libra, but more Justice than Libra right now, the Tower, and the Four of Pentacles. So there's something that you thought was solid, that maybe you thought you had more power over in terms of your values, your money, your beliefs perhaps, and yet now there's a huge change happening. For some of you, this change, this shift in not only your mind, how you think about money, how you think about fairness, how you think about and how you go about your life in these different ways, right? So fairness, values, your systems, what you put belief into, what you put your energy into, where you put your mind into, where you put your where you pay attention, right? Something, maybe you've been paying attention in a certain direction for a while, and this other one has been kind of calling, kind of asking you to come through, and you're still just over here doing this, maybe external, right? And then the internals being, you're being somewhat attentive to that side of you, but not as much maybe as the external. So what do? You notice how these things mirror each other, and you notice how whatever you're not paying attention to is what's directly in front, and blocking is whatever you are. So maybe certain books have come up, or certain conversations have come up, or they will continue to come up this month. But it's just a very overnight thing. And for a lot of you, this hasn't started until this week. That's why I think for these last couple readings, I was like, okay, I'm going to pause, because Libra season is a lot. There was a lot that went on. There was a lot of times where I went back more than I normally do, just to make sure things were relayed, because so much can go on that even I can not finish completely a sentence, or kind of be so neutral that there's no compassion. Not that there's no compassion, but that there's more there's less pause. But I found that there is pausing during this month that we kind of need. We need a moment to take the shift. I know it's I don't feel like I have a moment. You may not feel like there is time. There is. You have to catch your breath. Take a pause where you can. Take it day by day, step by step, moment by moment. If you don't have that, notice what you need. Just notice what you have access to, right? If you're somewhere else and you just need the mind to kind of take a pause, maybe you can write a list of things that you need to do. Get it out of your head. Do something like that, because this eclipse is bringing all these things to the table. So there are things that will be brought to the table for everyone. There's enough to go around, but positive and negative, I should say. But it's a balance of the system and how things are shifting now. It's a balance of the stars. Yeah, there's been some crucial moments this month, especially with how you relay where you're at, what you're going through, what that looks like in your life. And you'll also notice where maybe you've been, again, being over attentive to certain areas, or sharing too much, or not sharing enough. So it really just depends on what it is this is for you. And if you haven't, and you still are not taking the small hints this week of the eclipse, You almost have no choice. So for those of you who have been like, okay, waiting for, okay, the moment's coming, because you can take in, how do I want to say this? You can notice what's been trying to get to you if you take and reflect your feelings while you've been doing specific things or at specific places or having specific conversations. Regardless of where it's been up or who's brought it up, there's something that you feel inside about the specific subject. Maybe you diverted or glossed over, not really engaged like you could, right? Or like you would want to, or maybe you put up mental blocks there. This is now showing up in your life in a way that you kind of have to be committed to. You can't just escape it, right? There's no way to overindulge this. It's already gotten to that point. So it's about knowing that where this is going to bring you is to a place where you can learn to be more independent yet dependent on yourself, right? So independent is being dependent on the self, but it's also being dependent on the choices that you decide to make, because we all make choices that we can follow through in many extents. Like you can only go so far. Maybe life is serving you this moment. We have the swords coming out because it's time to take what you have maybe time and time again brought up against in terms of constraint and self-control, in terms of, okay, how does this shift who I am, not just what my life looks like? How do I bank on myself? How do I put this energy into myself if it's not money? Well, you take money, you break it down into its energetics. What is money? Well, it's how you spend your time. When you make your money, you're making it determining on how you're spending your time, whether it's at a job, if you're creating, whatever you're putting energy into. Not that everything you put energy into needs to bring money back, but in terms of, being able to pay for your life, pay for bills, all that good human stuff. This month is giving you a very clear view of, if you want this, then this needs to happen. So it's like a pretty straightforward equation that's going on, and it's up to you to take it how it is. There may be some feelings, of course, involved, and a tendency to feel more heightened in your senses, maybe more attention. So if you can get into your body, if you're not someone who does exercise or movement, even if it's just a brief walk or whatever you have access to, take it. Being around other people may take your mind off things for a while, but that's only if you're really around the people that can allow you to feel like you're real people, that allow you to feel like yourself, that you can just be who you are. Because this month is a lot about relations. This is bringing you back to your relationship. Our relationships in Venus, right? So we're talking about a Venus sign. We have a lot of Venusian activity going on. The change in Venus, the change in signs, a reflection on the Venus in Leo aspect. We have Libra having an eclipse, Taurus at the end of the month having the last in its eclipse. So love and money is on the table. And what you're willing to give, the energy you're willing to put into X, Y, and Z is only sharpening your skill set here. So you have the Magician, which is one of your cards back to you at the end of the month. Mercury is riding through Libra now too, and we'll get more into that into the second part. But this is about you and how you define yourself as independent, right? You can have independent thought. You can have independent, you can be financially independent. You could be a single person. You could feel independent by how you feel, think, and do in the world, but somehow it's always limited if one of the things that I just said isn't in full process, right? So you can be an independent thinker, but if you're someone that's not also financially independent, meaning able to pay your bills, not to, has a balance on your activities in your life and what you're able to manage and pay for and do, then it's more than likely that there's still something blocking you. And it's not because you can't have that. That's not the truth. That's not because you're less than anyone who already has that, because that's not true either, because they don't have to even explore their minds, right? But there's something that each person or each aspect has and has access to that you wouldn't know unless you had it, right? So if you're someone that wants to find more of an opening, find more freedom in your mind, it's time to move beyond the patterns. All of us are being asked to do this, but your patterns tend to do with like how you manage your life, like what you want to do, your activities, what you're interested in, as well as how you make money, how you interact with your partner. This is a lot about you, though. There's not a lot about, well, justice brings up in love, it brings up that, but you'll see that this, whatever I talk about, it would also maybe go into your love situation as well. And the beautiful thing here is, we always got to bring the beauty into it, is that you've learned something. You have learned something, and this Pluto aspect, but this, and these harsh habits and patterns that we're taking a look at, that it's everything so thin about, is that unfortunately, maybe they've been passed down to us, and this is the way we've learned to go about managing these situations through what we learned as a child. Fortunately, you can take a look and see where that's brought everyone in this family, and maybe you can even talk to certain people in your life that you consider family that are actually our family, and see if they'll be willing to talk to you about a specific subject, or getting more interested in good quality information, right? Maybe you join some kind of group online, maybe you do a challenge, depending on this aspect in your life. But it has a lot to do with, which is interestingly enough, we talked about how you're more invested in the physicality, but it's also the self-control of that's shaping what's going on within you. And we always get to these points, right? Sagittarius, like you go so far and then all of a sudden, like boom, like something stops you in your tracks, and you have to build from there. You have to go from there, but you don't realize that none of the progress that you have already made isn't gone. You just put it into like where the growth is next, where it is going now, right? Oh, Biddy. Sorry, my kitty was just underneath and I didn't even know. My kitty. So by the end of the month, the planets are really speaking to you through how you're choosing to use this information. The information about yourself, if those of you who need to take up a meditation practice, again, take up a movement practice, do something that gets you really invested in yourself. So this also, the Nine of Pentacles also reminds me of being invested in yourself, but also being attached to, so unattached that this bird comes over and sits on her hand, but yet your hand still rests on what you've created and the fruits of your labor. So you have this mutual connection from hand to hand of the attachment and the unattachment, right? Because you're not going to sleep in that garden. This is what you can sleep knowing that the garden is blossoming and continuously blooming on its own. And because this month is a lot about power, control, and I find attachment to be that very spiritual layer of it, that understanding between paying attention, paying for things, right? Like that, let go of that energy that you've used to make it, and then you're trading it over for something in return. And the weight of that, weighing out everything, it's exhausting mentally, but that's how you get to the next step. It's that discipline. If no one knows discipline, it's not your Libra and Capricorn here. Cardinal energy. If you're not around enough cardinal energy, you don't know enough about that directive, discipline. I'm gonna make it. This is the time for it, because we have these eclipses moving into Libra and Aries. So we have this direction. So even if you don't understand why, she's like, well, why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? why do I have to feel this way, particularly if you're feeling maybe a little less than right now, or maybe lacking right now, just because I'm going through ... Well, it's just that match of energy. If you wouldn't feel that way if you didn't care, right? But there's something deeper here for you. There's a deeper direction here that you are being guided to. And I do believe that happens with a lot of us, is that we go, no matter what happens, we all go through these moments, and this is like a big transformative moment, right? And you, at the end of it, being able to look at the table and see the skills that you have sharpened, and the layer you have gotten to, the level you have gotten to. Doesn't really matter, but if you want to take it in that sense, you find a way to find freedom within the constraint in the constraints you already have, in the place that you're already in. Even though you have a goal, you find a way to freedom. You find a way to take what you've learned and put it into now the physical world through that act of discipline, and relying on your own ability to find that intuition plus instinct, without just like doing. It's up here first. Okay? See you in the next part.